So what size are cells? How small do you think the cells are in your body, for example? It's a bit of a difficult thing to wrap your head around. So let's start by taking a look at this ant. This ant is a centimetre in length, and it's a multicellular organism. This means it's made up of multiple cells. In fact, just its brain can be made of as many as 250,000 cells, which is pretty staggering. So you have to use units that are smaller than a centimetre to measure cells. Start by breaking down a centimetre into smaller units. Each centimetre consists of 10 smaller millimetres. However, millimetres still aren't small enough to measure cells, but you can break a millimetre down into 1,000 smaller units called microns or micrometers. A micron is therefore 1,000th of a millimetre. These are the units that you'll become most familiar with in a biology classroom due to the magnification power of the microscopes you'll be using and the size of the cells they'll enable you to see. You will need to become comfortable converting units between millimetres and microns quite easily. Electron microscopes will enable you to see things even smaller, and 1 micron can be broken down into 1,000 smaller units called nanometers. Now that you're familiar with microns and nanometers, let's take a look at the typical size of different cells. The human eye is capable of seeing quite small things. Depending on your eyesight, you may be able to see things that are smaller than a millimetre in size. Anything smaller than that, and you'll start to have to use a light microscope. In biology, you'll mainly be looking at plant and animal cells as well as bacteria cells. Plant and animal cells are typically between 10 and 100 microns in size. So if you remember your conversions, that's between 0.01 millimetres to 0.1 millimetres in size. Bacteria are even smaller than that. Most bacteria are between 1 micron and 10 microns in size. So again, that's 0.001 millimetres to 0.01 millimetres in size. This is within the range of a light microscope that you'll be able to use in biology. To see plant and animal cells, bacteria cells, and anything smaller than this in greater detail, you need to use an electron microscope. This will enable you to start seeing things such as viruses or even proteins that make up part of the cell membrane. The type of microscope you use in your school lab is a light or an optical microscope. This is the same type of microscope that was used when scientists first discovered cells, which is pretty incredible. Light microscopes are ideal for generating true colour views of living or preserved cells. Because light must pass through an object to reveal its internal features, the specimen must be transparent or thinly sliced to generate a good image, and you'll spend a good bit of time in class trying to get images with specimens that are thin enough. Two types of light microscopes include compound microscopes and the confocal microscope. A compound microscope uses 2 or more lenses to focus visible light through a specimen. This compound microscope has a light source that shines through the specimen on the stage that is then magnified by the ocular lens which you look through, and then further by the objective lens which you can change to varying magnifications. The ocular lens in your classroom microscope magnifies things by a factor of 10, or 10 times larger than you would be able to view them with the naked eye. This is represented with the symbol times 10. The 3 objective lenses are generally magnifications of times 4, times 10, and times 40. In order to figure out the total magnification of the image, you multiply the value of the ocular lens magnification by that of the objective lens. And you end up with magnifications of times 40, times 100, and times 400. So you're able to see images 400 times larger than they are in real life. Now, if you use an oil immersion lens, you can magnify up to 1,000 times for viewing things such as bacteria. Well, another type of light microscope is called a confocal microscope, and it uses laser light which passes through a pinhole and results in a highly focused image of one tiny part of the specimen. You can then use computers to join these images together in order to produce a three-dimensional view of the specimen. These microscopes are capable of magnifying up to 1,600 times. To magnify further than this and get good quality images, you have to use either a transmission or a scanning electron microscope. The transmission electron microscope, or TEM, sends a beam of electrons through a very thin slice of the specimen using a magnetic field rather than a glass lens to focus the beam. The microscope translates the contrast in electron transmission into a high-resolution, two-dimensional image that shows the internal features of the object. TEMs can magnify things up to 50 million times, which is quite staggering considering they're improving this technology every year to magnify even further. The scanning electron microscope, or SEM, scans a beam of electrons over the surface of a metal-coated three-dimensional specimen. So the specimens are often coated in a thin layer of gold. The maximum magnification of an SEM is about 250,000 times. However, it produces some of the most spectacular three-dimensional images of the microscopic world, such as these granules of pollen or this snowflake. Different microscopes are good for different purposes. Both TEM and SEM provide a much greater magnification than light microscopes, but they do have some limitations. First, they're extremely expensive to build, operate, and maintain. Second, electron microscopes normally require a specimen to be killed, chemically fixed, and placed in a vacuum, and these treatments can distort the natural structures, whereas light microscopes allow you to view living organisms. Third, unlike light microscopes, all images from electron microscopes are black and white, although they are often given false colour. So you have to choose a different microscope depending on the purpose of what you want to do and what you want to see. The light microscope that you use in your biology classroom is capable of seeing some pretty amazing things, and you'll get a view into the incredible microscopic world.